Hello, my name is Belle. I'm a 28-year-old mother who just gave birth to her first child. I also got divorced, but I can confidently say that my life only got better after the divorce. Allow me to tell you my story. I met my now ex-husband Richard when we were in college. We had a few mutual friends who ended up introducing us to each other, and we clicked almost instantly. We ended up going on a few dates, and then we made our relationship official. Now, I want you to know that Richard was the first serious relationship I'd ever had. I mean, I had crushes before, but I'd never been with anyone. The entire experience was new to me, so I didn't know what was right or wrong. Not to mention, since it was my first relationship, I overlooked a lot of things just because I wanted the relationship to last. I know that was not a good thing to do, but I was young and naive, and Richard had systematically isolated me, so I had no one to talk to about how I was feeling. Anyway, after we graduated college, Richard convinced me to leave my hometown to go to his because we would have better job opportunities. That was true for him, though, and not for me. I struggled for the first few years, and eventually we decided that I would just stay at home and do all the household chores. Around 3 years into our move, Richard asked me to marry him. Of course I said yes, and we went to the courthouse to get married. I was bummed out that we didn't have a ceremony or anything, but Richard was the only breadwinner, and he had just purchased our house a few months ago. He refused to listen to me and did it even though I didn't think that was a smart idea. Anyway, about 6 months after we got married, I finally managed to land a good enough job, and I was happy with it. I was just happy to be able to get out of the house and socialize with people. The 3 years before that were just torture, and looking back, I don't even know how I survived them. With my job, I was finally able to contribute to our finances. Richard was insistent about me not helping him pay the mortgage, so I only paid off my student loans and helped with other expenses around the house. I was finally getting comfortable with how life was going when 6 months later, Richard brought up something that had been weighing in on his mind. "Hey, sweetie, I've had something on my mind for a while now. Do you think we could talk about it?" "Of course. What is it?" "We've been married for over a year now. I was wondering if we could start trying for kids." "Kids? You want to have them now?" "I mean, yeah, all of my friends have them. And I kind of also want to have them. There'll be mini versions of ourselves, and isn't that just an adorable idea?" "It is an adorable idea, but we're in no financial position to have kids, sweetie." "What do you mean?" "We're both still paying off our student loans. And on top of that, you also have a mortgage to pay. Neither of us are working jobs that pay us a good amount. Bringing a child into this will only make our situation worse." "I'm sure we'll be able to manage. I mean, we always find a way to make ends meet." "But I don't want to just manage. We're living pretty well right now, and I don't want to jeopardize that." "You can't always be selfish." "Excuse me? How am I being selfish here?" "It's always about what you want. When do we ever get to do what I want?" "Richard, buying this house was literally your idea, even though I told you that it wasn't a good idea. I would love to do the things that you want to do, but most of them are not sound financially for us." "You just always have an excuse, don't you?" "You don't have to get so worked up about this." "Of course I do. I've always wanted to have kids, and you're ruining my dream." "I'm not saying that we won't have kids. All I'm saying is that we wait a little longer before having them." "I don't want to wait for years only to be told no again. You need to make up your mind within the next week, or this is it for us." "Are you threatening to divorce me over this?" "I don't want to spend the rest of my life with someone who won't let me accomplish my dreams. Good night." I couldn't believe that Richard was threatening to leave me over having kids. I knew that I had always wanted kids, but I also knew that I only wanted them when I was able to afford them. Richard couldn't understand my viewpoint, and he only saw it as me refusing to have children with him. Over the next week, I tried my best to explain my viewpoints to him, but he would not listen to me. He would only get angrier. So eventually, in a desperate attempt to save my marriage, I agreed to have a child. Richard was over the moon, and I was feeling pretty miserable about it. It didn't take long, and after only 2 months of trying, I got pregnant. I will admit that I had warmed up to the idea of being a mother by that point, so I was just as happy as Richard when I found out I was pregnant. But that happiness was pretty short-lived, because after only 2 months of pregnancy, I began to notice a shift in Richard's behavior. Initially, he had been kind and caring towards me, especially because the first trimester was being particularly harsh towards me. But by the 3rd month, he began to withdraw himself and spend more and more time at work. I tried asking him to cut back his hours, especially because I was having a hard time moving because of all the pain, but he refused to do it and would get angry every time I asked. I let go of it and figured out how to do things by myself, but then things only got worse. Richard began coming home late at night, drunk out of his mind. Now, at first, he'd tell me he went out with some coworkers to celebrate some big new project or some accomplishment, but then he'd stop telling me that too. It got to a point where I was more safe by myself than I was when Richard was around. I had to take care of myself and Richard at the same time, and it was exhausting. There were some days when I couldn't even get out of bed to go to the bathroom because of how much pain I was in, and even on those days, I could never get a hold of Richard. Somehow, I got through 7 months of pregnancy. During the 8th month, Richard came home drunk for the 4th night in a row, and I had finally had enough. Richard, this is the 4th time this week that you've come home belligerent drunk. Shut up, Belle. Excuse me? This stupid pregnancy has made you such a prude. Get over it. Let me have a good time. This stupid pregnancy was your idea. You begged me to have your children. The least you could do is be present for me while I'm going through this. Hold on. Who is this? Belle, say hello to my new lover, Tiffany. Lover? Are you cheating on me? What? Did you not know or something? What? How was I supposed to know that? And how dare you? How dare I? How dare you? What does that even mean? You've been so sad and sick. It's so off-putting. Of course I had to go and find someone else to satisfy my needs. I don't know if you're blind or just plain stupid, but I'm pregnant with your child that you begged me to have. Of course, like always, you just have to blame me for your shortcomings. I'm sorry that my pregnancy has been hard on you, but did you for once think about what it's been like for me? You never once checked up on me. Instead, you've been out drinking away your sorrows while I'm stuck at home barely making it through the day. How dare you cheat on me and have the audacity to bring your mistress back home? Again with the nagging. Stop it. You're killing the mood right now. You're killing me with your words and actions, Richard. How could you do this to me? Gosh, stop being a drama queen. You know, this is a lot better than what some other husbands do to their wives. At least I'm only cheating on you and not hitting on you. What are you even saying? Aren't both of us being satisfied this way? You get to have a husband, and I get all my needs met. You don't have to be such a prude. You are unbelievable. You need to throw this girl out, and I want you out of the house too. That is not happening. I do not want to be around you right now. You've done enough damage. You and your girl need to leave right this instant. Absolutely not. I bought this house and I'm the one that's paying the mortgage for it. You do not get to tell me what I should do. You know what? You should be the one to leave. You can't throw an 8-month pregnant lady out onto the streets right now. Oh, yes, I can. At least this way, I don't have to hear your nagging, and I get to have my fun. What are you doing? Richard, it's cold outside. I don't have a car. Let go of me. Richard grabbed my hand tightly and pulled me with him to the front door before throwing me out of the house. He smirked at me and then shut the door in my face. I stared at the door in shock. I could not believe what had just happened. I numbly walked away from the house and onto the street. I had no phone or wallet or my house keys. I was a pregnant woman, alone at night. Walking around the quiet streets, I was practically begging to get hurt. But I had nowhere else to go. All I had for company was the hurt from Richard's words and actions. I could not believe that he had been cheating on me when I was at home sick with worry and in pain from my pregnancy. Just as my tears began to fall, a car began approaching me and stopped right beside me. My heart was racing because I thought that I was going to get kidnapped. A man stepped out of the car and handed me his jacket. Hi there, you look cold. Here, take my jacket. Oh no, it's okay. Please, I insist. Thank you. I couldn't help but notice that you're all alone at night walking the streets in not very warm clothing. Do you need a ride back home? No, it's okay. I don't think I'm welcome back home anyway. What do you mean? Is Richard not treating you well? Hold on. How do you know my husband? He's my son. What? He told me that you'd abandoned him when he was a boy. I didn't abandon him so much as I caught his mother cheating on me and she filed for full custody of him. And when she got it, she made sure to poison his mind full of lies about me. Whoa, what? Oh yeah, there's a whole story there, and maybe I'll tell you that another time. But for now, why are you not at home right now? Surely it's not good for you to be out in the cold while pregnant. Well, Richard has a bit of a drinking problem. I didn't mind that, but I did mind him coming home today with a girl on his hand that he brought home to satisfy his needs because I wasn't doing it for him. What? That's absolutely disgusting. Oh yeah, I know. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I have no family in this state, and I have no friends that I could crash at either. My phone, my keys, and cards are at home, so I have nothing with me. I'll help you take care of that immediately. How about I get you an Uber and set you up in a nice hotel for the night? Maybe tomorrow you could try going back home, and if Richard lets you go in, you can grab all your stuff and get back to the hotel. Really? But why would you do that for me? Because I know what it's like to get screwed over by your spouse. And against all my wishes, Richard turned out to be just like his mother. I want to help prevent you from going through all the heartbreak I went through because of it. Besides, you're pregnant. You don't deserve to go through all this. Thank you so much. How could I ever repay you? How about we meet for lunch tomorrow and discuss what to do from here on? The only way for you to repay me is for you to leave Richard and make his life miserable in the process. Absolutely. I'll do it. I couldn't believe that I was talking to Richard's father, and also the fact that I hadn't heard of him even more. The man introduced himself as William, and I told him I was Belle. William stuck to his word and booked me an Uber to the nearest, nicest hotel. He then followed the Uber, and when we got to the hotel, he had been set up in a good room. He wished me good night and left me there. That night, I laid awake for a long time with a lot of questions weighing on my mind. I was also grappling with all the emotions from having found out about Richard's affair and his disgusting behavior over the years. I had been taken advantage of at all points in our relationship, and I never saw it. I cried myself to sleep that night, and somehow it was still the best sleep I had had in a long while. The next day, I only woke up at noon. I hurried to get ready and finally made my way downstairs to meet William in the dining hall. William was already seated at a table and he had the food ordered already. He greeted me warmly when he saw me. "Good afternoon, Belle. I hope that you slept well." "Good afternoon. It's been the best sleep I've had in a long while." "As sad as that is, I'm glad to hear that you managed to get good sleep. Did you manage to swing by your place and collect your things?" "No. I was awake till pretty late last night and I only woke up about an hour ago." "Oh, was something keeping you up? Are you all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I just had a lot of questions about you and it kept me up for a while." "I get that. Why don't you ask me now?" "Really? Are you sure?" "Why not? We're here to talk anyway." "First of all, you said that you and Richard were estranged, so how did you know where he lived? Secondly, why were you near our house? And thirdly, why has Richard never mentioned you in all our time of being together? And lastly, why did you help me out and why did you book me an Uber and a hotel room?" "I see why those questions kept you up. I will admit our meeting happened in a very strange manner, and so I will answer all of your questions. Yes, Richard and I were estranged, but a few years ago we reconnected and I've been trying my best to mend our relationship. Just when I thought our relationship was making progress, I had to move to Germany because I got transferred. That's where I've been living for the past few years, which is why you probably haven't heard much about me." "I mean, Richard could have still brought you up, but the only time he did, he told me that you had abandoned him." "I'm sure that my leaving yet again made him feel that way again, but I had no choice. I needed to work at that company in order to make enough money to pay off all the bills that I had accumulated thanks to the divorce. I tried to explain that to Richard, but he wouldn't listen." "That sounds like Richard, all right." "I know where you live because I did some digging and asked around a bunch to find Richard, and that's how I found out that he got married too. I only came back to town a few hours before that, and I wanted to try to make amends with Richard first thing after I got back. Just as I was pulling up to your house, I saw him throw you out, so I approached you." "Yeah, okay, that track." "And lastly, I booked you an Uber and a hotel room because I highly doubt that you'd have been comfortable with getting into a stranger's car and home." "That's fair. That was a stupid question to ask in hindsight." No, and like I told you last night, I do not want you to go through any more troubles at the hands of my son. I've been through it, and I can only imagine that it'll be worse for you since you're pregnant, and pretty soon you'll have a child to take care of as well. How about you tell me a little more about Richard so we can hit him where it hurts during the divorce?" I was genuinely so grateful for William. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone as nice and caring as him could have possibly been related to a monster like Richard. Just the fact that William was perceptive enough to book me an Uber instead of inviting me into his car because he didn't want me to be uncomfortable was so enlightening to me. That was something I know for a fact that Richard would never have considered. William and I spent our lunchtime figuring out what we wanted to do about my situation. I could tell that William was angry with Richard and his actions because he kept trying to find the worst ways to humiliate Richard. When I told him the company that Richard worked for, William's eyes lit up. Turned out that William knew the CEO of that company. How did he know him? Well, William is a very big person in our city. I knew that he was rich, but I didn't know how rich or why he was that rich. It was jarring to know that I was sitting with one of the biggest names in our city, plotting revenge against his son. William told me that he'd get in touch with the CEO of Richard's company and have him lay Richard off. I wanted to feel bad about jeopardizing Richard's future, especially because I knew about all our financial struggles, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I mean, if Richard had no problem leaving me alone when I was pregnant and then throwing me out of the house, I had no reason to feel bad for him. William also assured me that he'd get me in contact with the city's best divorce lawyer. I was excited to finally get a hold of my life and start fresh without Richard in the picture. Anyway, after lunch, I was pretty exhausted, so I asked William if I could stay another night at the hotel without having to go home first. He simply handed me his card and told me to make myself comfortable. The next day, William accompanied me as I went back home to retrieve all my things. I was nervous about seeing Richard again, but seeing as he made no effort to track me down, I had a feeling that my nervousness was going to change to anger when I saw him. When we got there, I had William wait in the car while I knocked on the door. When Richard opened the door, he looked surprised to see me. I pushed past him and walked into the house. "You finally came back, huh? Where were you?" "I was with a friend who was helping me out." "A friend? You don't have any friends here. Are you also cheating on me?" "No, she isn't. I'm the friend she's talking about." "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I was going to come over to meet you the night before, but I happened to witness you throwing Belle out of the house. She told me that you were drunk and you brought home another woman. Is that right?" "It is, but I don't see how that's any of your concern." "Oh, it is my concern. You know very well how your mother tried her hardest to destroy me in the divorce, and I will not let that happen to Belle." "What are you talking about? We're not getting a divorce." "Yes, we are. William has been helping me find a good divorce lawyer." "Dad, you're helping her? But you don't even know her. You're choosing a stranger over your son?" "If I recall correctly, didn't you as a teenager do the same thing to me when you chose your mom's affair partner over your own father?" "So, is this some sick and twisted payback of yours?" "No. Even though you did that to me, I still tried my hardest to repair our relationship. I let you insult me and use me for my money, just so I could have a better relationship with my son. I let it all go, but seeing you treat your pregnant wife the same way that your mother treated me is where I draw the line. I just know that this is all Belle's doing. You brainwashed my dad. Was ruining my life not enough that you had to go after my family as well?" "How exactly did I ruin your life? I did everything you asked me to, even if it was at my expense. You were the one who decided to cheat on me and throw me out late at night with nothing except the clothes on my back. You're going to get what you deserve, and there's nothing you can say or do that will change that." With that, I turned around and walked straight to the bedroom where I began to pack my stuff up. My heart was racing because I stood up for myself for the first time, and I felt great about it. As I was packing my things up, I faintly heard William and Richard talking, more like Richard was screaming and William was calmly replying to him. Later, I found out that Richard was yelling at William for taking my side over his and would not let that go. After we left, William helped me move my things into my hotel room and let me rest for the remaining day. The next day, he helped me get started with the divorce filing. It was surprisingly easy, and my lawyer seemed to be a very good person. He asked me if I wanted to press any charges against Richard for neglect and abuse, but I wanted to wait on that because I wanted to see what he would do when he was served with the divorce papers. If there was one thing that I was sure that I wanted to do, it was getting full custody of my child. The lawyer helped set up the paperwork for that, and then I asked him to have them served to Richard after I had given birth. I just didn't want to deal with any of Richard's outbursts until then. Thankfully, only a week after all of that was done, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. William helped me get an apartment, which he helped me and my baby move into once I was discharged from the hospital. I waited around 2 weeks after giving birth to tell my lawyer to serve Richard with the papers. Just as I predicted, Richard was fuming. He called me and asked to meet me. I suggested a cafe near his house, and when I got there, Richard was already sitting at a table looking angry. When he saw me approach the table, he stood up and began to yell at me for trying to get full custody of my child. Are you seriously trying to take away my custody of our child? Why would you have any custody to begin with? Get over yourself. I'm the reason that this kid exists, and you cannot take that away from me. You're the reason? You forced me into having this child, and then my body did all the work to grow this child. You did nothing but provide what was necessary for the fertilization. So, does that mean that I don't get to raise my son? I don't want you anywhere near me or my child. You're abusive and a drunkard. I'm sure that no court will grant you custody based on that fact alone. I could clean up my act and then get custody. I'm not letting you take my child away from me. You're right. There are ways for you to work around that, but seeing as you have no job, there's absolutely no way that they'll grant you any custody. Couple that with your record of drinking and say goodbye to me and my child. How did you know about me losing my job? I never told you. Hold on. Did you have something to do with that? Nope, I had nothing to do with it. Although your father is a very influential man in this city, I'm not so sure that he didn't pull any strings to make that happen. How dare you meddle with my life? I knew I was right to cheat on you. You were completely undeserving of any love. That's a lot of words coming from someone who has nothing going for him right now. You need to reevaluate your life choices and see why you are where you are right now. You can hate me all you want, but deep down you know that your decisions led you here. Don't talk to me like I'm some idiot. I will sue you. Go ahead and try. Your father has found the best lawyer in this city to represent me. Be careful not to spend all your money on court cases against me. That would be a very bad financial decision. Who am I kidding? You've never listened to me, so why would you listen to me now? Anyways, I have to go. Bye. I got up and left the cafe with my head held high. Nothing could beat the feeling of putting Richard in his place. All the hurt that he'd caused me finally came back to hurt him, and I knew that none of that would have been possible without me having accidentally met William. After that meeting, William stopped by my place and I told him about my encounter with Richard. William and I shared a laugh at Richard's soon-to-be bleak future. William offered to help me find a good job and pulled a few strings to get me a very good paying salary job. Rest assured, my child and I will be more than comfortable for a long time. William also set up a trust fund for my child to make sure that his future was taken care of. As for his relationship with Richard, William officially wants nothing to do with him. His witnessing how brutal Richard was towards me really made him snap, and he wanted nothing to do with Richard. William had told me that he had planned to give Richard a huge surprise by offering him the position of assistant manager, but obviously that was off the table. I couldn't help but wonder how much different life would have been if Richard had been a nicer person. Don't get me wrong, I'm very content with the life I have now. It's just that I sometimes can't help but wonder what would have happened. It's been a few months since I started the divorce proceedings, and thankfully, Richard has been easy to deal with. I guess my advice about how to use his money was taken seriously. Not that it mattered to me. My son is more than healthy, and William is quickly becoming a stable figure in our lives. He truly is a lovely man. I'm doing very well career-wise as well. As for Richard, last I heard, he couldn't keep up with mortgage payments and moved back home with his mother, who was not happy to hear that William was back in town. She sent me a lot of messages that essentially questioned my morality for letting an evil man into my life. But if William was evil, then what was Richard? I didn't want to deal with her, so I simply blocked her. I have had enough of being told what to do, and for the first time in years, I am living on my terms. I'm not going to let anyone control me or my decisions. And for the first time in a while, I'm actually excited to see what life has to offer me next.